In 1907, a journalist drove a Rolls-Royce from London to Glasgow and back. 600 miles, no breakdowns, no repairs, no stops except for fuel. He wrote afterward that the most remarkable thing about the car was not its speed, not its comfort, not its design, it was the silence. At 60 miles per hour, the loudest sound inside the cabin was the clock on the dashboard. That was 1907. 117 years later, the loudest sound inside a Rolls-Royce is still the clock. Some things do not need to be reinvented, they need to be perfected. 7 levels, let's get into it. Level 1, the A-Rolls Ghost, $380,000. This is the level that makes Rolls-Royce uncomfortable, because the Ghost was designed to be attainable, relatively. And attainability is not a word Rolls-Royce uses in its own marketing, ever. Here is what $380,000 buys you at level 1. A 675-liter twin-turbocharged V12 producing 563 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. A car that weighs nearly 6,000 pounds and somehow makes that weight feel like a superpower rather than a limitation. But the spec sheet is not the point. The point is the architecture of the cabin. Rolls-Royce calls it the gallery dashboard. A single uninterrupted pane of glass stretching the full width of the interior, behind which the owner places whatever they want. Artwork, commissioned pieces, objects of personal significance. Your dashboard is a display case for the things you have decided matter. At level 1, you are not buying a car. You are buying the first version of a product that has been refined over a century to communicate one specific thing before a single word is spoken. That you have arrived somewhere. The buyer at this level is the founder who just closed a Series C, the partner who just made partner, the person for whom $380,000 is significant but not incomprehensible. They are not the end customer Rolls-Royce imagined, but they are the beginning of the conversation. Level 2, the classic Phantom, $460,000. If the Ghost is the entry point, the Phantom is the statement. The Phantom has been in continuous production in one form or another since 1925. Every version has been the car that heads of state, monarchs, and the genuinely wealthy have used to move through the world when they wanted the world to notice. Here is what separates the Phantom from everything below it. The Phantom does not drive like a car. It moves like a room that has decided to change location. Rolls-Royce engineers built what they call a magic carpet ride into the suspension system. Cameras read the road surface 500 times per second. The suspension adjusts before the wheel reaches the imperfection. You do not feel the road. The road is simply managed on your behalf by a system you never need to think about. The silence inside a Phantom is 68 decibels at motorway speed. That is quieter than most people's living rooms. 130 kilograms of acoustic insulation. Tires filled with foam rather than air. Double glazed windows. The outside world is not excluded. It is simply edited. The buyer at this level is not buying a car that goes from A to B. They are buying a mobile environment that happens to move. The Phantom does not take you somewhere. It brings your world with you. Level 3, the convertible Dawn. $380,000 to $420,000. At level 3, Rolls-Royce makes a car that requires you to want to be seen. The Dawn is a 4-seat convertible. Its roof is made of 6 layers of acoustic material and takes exactly 22 seconds to open or close, at speeds up to 31 miles per hour, while moving. But the Dawn exists to make a point that the other cars on this list avoid. Every other Rolls-Royce is designed to insulate you from the world, to place you inside a sealed environment of extraordinary quality where the outside exists only as something to be viewed. The Dawn removes that barrier deliberately. At level 3, you are not hiding inside the machine. You are arriving in it, visibly. The car is the announcement and you are the news. The buyer at this level has a different relationship with visibility than every other Rolls-Royce owner on this list. They are not using the car as a private sanctuary. They are using it as a public statement. Same mark. Completely different philosophy. The thread running through every level on this list is this. Every Rolls-Royce is an answer to a question. The question changes depending on who is asking it. At level 3, the question is not how do I travel in private? The question is how do I arrive? Level 4, the SUV Cullinan. $350,000 to $450,000. In 2018, Rolls-Royce did something that many people thought was impossible. They built an SUV. The reaction from traditional Rolls-Royce customers was what you would expect. This was not what Rolls-Royce does. This was a compromise. This was the brand chasing a market instead of setting one. They were wrong. The Cullinan became the best-selling Rolls-Royce in the company's history within 2 years of launch. Here is why. The people who bought it were not the people who already owned Phantoms. They were a different category of buyer entirely. Younger, active, living a life that a traditional saloon could not accommodate. Private school runs in the morning, a ski trip in December. a property visit in February where the road ends 3 miles before the destination. The Cullinan did not dilute the Rolls-Royce proposition. It extended it to a life the previous models could not reach. Named after the largest gem-quality diamond ever found, 3,106 carats, discovered in South Africa in 1905. Now split and set into the British crown jewels. Rolls-Royce did not name their SUV after a mountain or a landscape. They named it after the most valuable uncut stone in recorded history. That choice tells you everything about what they think this car is. Level 5, the Bespoke Any Model. Bespoke division, 600,000 to several million. At level 5, the catalog disappears. Rolls-Royce has a division called Bespoke. Its job is to make the car you describe rather than sell you the car they have already made. Here's what that actually means in practice. A client in the Middle East requested the night sky of a specific date above a specific location to be recreated in fiber optic lights across the entire headliner of their Phantom. The date was the night their child was born, the location was the hospital, 1,340 individually placed fiber optic lights, exact star positions, exact constellations. The Milky Way rendered in the ceiling of a car. Another client requested that the wood veneer in their dashboard come from a tree that had stood on their family's estate for over 100 years. Rolls-Royce sourced the wood, had it milled, seasoned, and fitted. The tree that shaded their great-grandparents is now the dashboard they rest their hands on every morning. A third client wanted the exterior paint to match a specific shade of green from a painting hanging in their private collection. Rolls-Royce color matched it precisely, mixed the paint, applied it in 35 individual layers. At level 5, the question is no longer, what does Rolls-Royce make? The question is, what do you want to exist that does not exist yet? And the answer is almost always yes. Level 6, the Coachbuild boat tail, swept tail, La Rose Noire, 25 mils in thousand to 30 mils in dollars. At level 6, Rolls-Royce stops being a car manufacturer. They become a coach builder. Coach building is one of the oldest crafts in the automotive world. Before mass production existed, every car was built this way. A chassis, an engine, a body designed and built entirely to the specification of one individual client. Rolls-Royce revived it. The swept tail was commissioned by a single anonymous client who approached Rolls-Royce with a sketch, a long sweeping roofline, a panoramic glass roof, the kind of proportions that had not been seen since the grand touring cars of the 1920s. It took 4 years to build. One car. 4 years. One client. The boat tail followed. 3 examples only. Each one different. Each one designed around the life of its specific owner. One included a refrigerated compartment for champagne, a bespoke hamper set, a pair of matching parasols that stow in the body of the car. The La Rose Noire droptail was built to honor a specific variety of black rose. The paint was developed over 2 years. The color changes depending on the light. There is no name for the exact shade because the shade did not exist before this car. At level 6, the car is not a product. It is a commission, like a painting, like a sculpture, like a building designed for one family and nobody else. The price reflects that. So does the waiting list. Level 7, the fleet, no price, no catalog, no waiting list. At level 7, a single Rolls-Royce is not enough, because a single Rolls-Royce can only be in one place. The Sultan of Brunei owns a collection estimated at over 500 Rolls-Royces. Not variations of one model. 500 individual cars spanning decades of production. Custom colors that do not appear in an iCatalog, because they were created exclusively for his collection and for no one else. Several of them have never been driven. The Saudi royal family maintains fleets positioned across the globe. Multiple vehicles in multiple countries so that wherever the principal is, there is already a car waiting that meets the standard. Not rented, not borrowed, permanently positioned. At this level, the economics of ownership that apply to every other level stop making sense as a framework entirely. You do not ask what a fleet of 500 Rolls-Royces costs because the question belongs to a different financial universe than the one these clients inhabit. But here is the insight that connects level 1 to level 7. At level 1, a $380,000 ghost tells the world you have arrived. At level 7, the car says nothing about you to the world, because the world is not in the room when the car arrives. The fleet is not a collection, it is infrastructure. The same way a private jet is not a flight. It is the elimination of the experience of flying. A Rolls-Royce at level 7 is not a car. It is the elimination of the experience of transport entirely. You are not going somewhere. You are simply there. Here is what almost nobody says about any of this. Every level from 1 to 7 is selling the same thing, not a car, the complete removal of friction from the act of moving through the world. At level 1, that friction is status. The Ghost removes the friction of not being taken seriously. At level 2, that friction is presence. The Phantom removes the friction of arriving without impact. At level 5, that friction is identity. Bespoke removes the friction of owning something that also belongs to someone else. At level 7, that friction is logistics. The Fleet removes the friction of planning. The car was never the product. The product was always what the car removes from your life. Rolls-Royce has understood this for 117 years. That is why the loudest sound in the cabin is still the clock. Subscribe. The next breakdown is coming.